All right, hi everybody. It's time for another installment of Espresso with the Experts, and today I'm excited to bring with you Jeff Tobe. Did I say your last name right?
Absolutely. You can say
Okay.
Tobe. I'll speak French if you want.
Yeah, I didn't know. Sometimes it might be Tobe, or something like that. Who has a tagline called "Coloring Outside the Lines," which I just find extraordinarily interesting. I can't wait to hear what this discussion's about. But as you know, in the format of these programs, we're going to start this off with a little coffee cup story. But before we do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off screen sharing so you can see us in larger mode. And now we can actually start and have the discussion, Jeff. Right. So did you bring your coffee cup?
Absolutely. First of all, thanks for having me. And second of all, you told me this was an adult only discussion, correct?
This is adults only. I clicked not for kids.
I brought mine.
That's great. Yeah. Okay. What's the story?
I'm not reading it. I'm not.
No, don't read it. Let's not read it out loud. But what's the story behind that?
I've had this coffee cup for over 25 years. And 25 years ago, I used to be in the marketing and advertising business. And without making a long story longer, the bottom line was that we had one customer who we were their call-in center, basically. And I used to talk to people, and apparently, I didn't know this, but my staff would always hear me saying this after I hung up. And so they got me the cup, and I use it often.
Every time you get off the phone. That's hilarious. So this is great because you're going to love this. This is sort of related. We have like a group of friends that we get together with pretty regularly, to have drinks or dinner or whatever. We all met from our daughter's dance studio. So all of our daughters were dancing together, and that's how we met. And they're just a great group of friends. And one night, I can't remember, we're sitting there and we're all venting about something, all of us together, and all of a sudden the one of our friends who's really deadpan in his delivery too. Sometimes like he'll deliver something, you think, is he serious? And he just goes, "Oh, F the F and F'ers," but he said the actual words.
Right.
And I think we all laughed for about 10 minutes straight right after he did that, because that's become one of my motto taglines now when I'm out driving in traffic,
You'll have to buy him a coffee mug with that on.
That's actually great. I might do just that. That's so funny. So, But yeah, that's wonderful that it was after a client call that you did that. So very fun. So, all right. By the way, what are you drinking? I'm always curious what you're drinking too. Oh, so you got tea in the coffee cup.
Now, I'm a Canadian. You may not know this. I'm a Canadian, so we drink our tea hot.
Hey, I like hot tea, eh? You know what's funny? You know what I used to do when I was flying a lot? You know how Delta can give you hot tea?
Right.
So what I would do, because I really, especially in the summer months, I like a cold tea, cold brewed tea.
Yeah.
I would order a hot tea and an empty glass of ice.
Yeah.
And I would take the hot tea, brew it, and then pour it into the empty glass of ice. And what was great is the flight attendant almost always would say, "You want lemon?"
Right.
I go, "Yeah, sure. That's great."
That's great.
That's my little life hack on how you can get yourself a cold tea from a hot tea on an airplane.
I love it.
Yeah. So, okay. Well, you have a tagline called "Coloring Outside the Lines."
Yeah. Yeah. More than
it's right there behind you. Look, it's right there on the screen. Yeah. Tell me about this. I'm curious about what this means.
Yeah, I'm an unabashed self-promoter. You'll find out too. So, coloring outside the lines is more than tagline. It's my trademark, my legal trademark. Many years ago, it comes from a poem that my dad gave me when I was 10 years old. So I would tell the story during my talks, and then I decided, you know what? In one of my presentations, I thought I'll call the presentation "Coloring Outside the Lines" because it's about creative thinking. And not long after that, I was in Detroit airport going down one of those walking or moving walkways. Guy coming the other way kind of looks at me and he goes, "I know you. You're the Coloring Outside the Lines guy." He didn't know my name. He had no clue where he'd heard me speak. But I thought I got to do something about that. So it really has become a wonderful umbrella for me because what I talk about, Randall, and what I do is really about creative thinking as it applies to the customer experience. It's about getting outside your comfort zone and kind of looking at what you do from a whole different perspective.
Mm. Oh, that's fantastic. And so in essence, you're sort of, I would assume then when you're working with the clients, you're looking at their existing customer delivery model
Correct.
and challenging them to say, how can you take this to a new level beyond what you've done before to enhance that experience?
Yeah.
Is that a fair assessment of what you're
It is
trying to do?
absolutely a fair assessment. The challenge we have, though, is that most of my clients are stuck in customer service mode, and they
Hmm.
don't think that they're using the verbiage customer experience, but they don't think there's a difference. And in our eyes, there's a huge difference between customer service and making the leap to customer experience. And then there's a third part, and that's the customer excellence. So
Hmm.
there's actually three parts to what we do. And the tough thing for us is to convince clients that they are not, focused on customer experience. They're focused on customer service in most cases.
Yeah, and so when I think of customer experience, I think of organizations like Disney and Starbucks and
And why?
places like that.
Why do
And
you?
and because when you walk in, you're getting more than just the product.
Yeah,
It's not just the product, it's the whole delivery of the product. Like how Disney's famously always said, you're not a staff member, you're a cast member. To
exactly.
to even the, you know, person out cleaning up horse dew on Main Street, USA,
Yeah,
they're a member of the cast.
absolutely.
And that changes the whole philosophy in terms of self-ownership and
Yeah.
everything. Yeah.
Just to simplify it for your viewers and listeners, it really is customer service is what I find most people do fairly well, although it sucks in most companies in the US, and that gives me an advantage. But when they do it well, it comes from the heart. What can I do
Mhm.
for you? How can I help you?
Yeah.
Customer experience to me is the ability to step back and ask ourselves, what's my customer's experience from the minute they make contact with us till the minute they're done? And so that's what Disney gets. That's what Zappos gets. Is it's not just the person who you're dealing with one-on-one, or you have to return an item and you get great service. It's really from the minute I make contact to the minute, and so that's a collaboration of what you're saying is all the cast members at Disney. They all make up the customer experience, not just
Mhm.
that one vendor or that one or Cinderella dressed up like a princess. So
Right, right.
that's the difference. And then when you can offer that experience consistently, which is not easy to do, that's when you move to customer excellence.
Yeah, and that makes a ton of sense because the biggest and hardest thing is you're probably dealing with these things called human beings
Oh, yeah,
that yeah, and you hire these human beings and there's variability amongst these human beings, and so I would imagine that a big part of what you're doing is trying to get the companies, the clients, to find ways to get that entire staff to level up their game. Is that a fair
absolutely.
assessment?
Absolutely. You got it right on. As a matter of fact, we've launched a 1-year customer experience journey for customers, for clients, where we take them through a year of training, and our focus is internal. My entire
Mhm.
philosophy is the more engaged people are internally, the better the experience externally. So why focus externally? Let's focus internally and get your people at all levels, no matter their department, no matter their title, get them engaged, and you'll find a huge difference in the customer experience.
Oh, that's fantastic. Can you give me some examples of some of the kinds? I obviously I don't want to get you to be naming client organizations if that's something
No,
that's you should probably not. But
yeah.
can you give me some examples of some of the kinds of things that you've worked on with some of the
Oh,
clients in terms
absolutely.
of how
Sure.
it elevated their from customer service to customer experience?
Yeah, absolutely. So we worked with a manufacturing company recently. We seem to have a niche in manufacturing, but we work with all kinds of companies. I do a lot of work in healthcare with small rural hospitals for some reason too. But the bottom line is what we did. First, I'll tell you what we did and then the results. But what we did is we established, and we do this with all our clients, we establish internally what's called a CX council. So internally, it's made up of 60% management, 40% frontline, and they're kind of the governing body over this new CX initiative that we're going to launch. And under them, if you can imagine, now there are what we call they have organizational wide projects. So depending on their size, it's typically one project for every 20 supervisors and managers. And they pick a project, a year-long project that they're going to work on all year to change the customer experience. and it's cross-departmental. This is not specifically departmental. And then under them, finally, are what we call our service excellence advisors. And they are frontline people who we actually teach a workshop to. It's train the trainer, and they in turn teach it to all employees in the organization. So we're working with organizations that are 150 to 500 employees, that middle kind of company. End result, the manufacturing company. We in a recent employee engagement survey, they went from 63% of their employees last year saying they would work for this company a year from now to 98% saying
wow.
company, and that they would recommend the company to others to work, which is huge, right?
Yeah, that's massive. I mean, to have a 98% declared retention rate moving forward. And
how about their customer retention? They had a problem with customer retention because they're in a very competitive market, and they went from I'm making these numbers up. I can't remember exactly, but it was a huge increase. I don't want to give numbers because then but I think it was like they had a 38% turnover in customers down to something like a 16% turnover in customers.
So you basically cut turnover pretty much in half.
Absolutely. And then finally, their CEO said to me recently, she said, I can't attribute our increase in revenue specifically to the program. She said, but we've increased revenue year over year by 12%. And she said, that's a huge part due to the CX program. So it's there. And I don't understand why more organizations aren't focusing on customer experience to increase their bottom line, to become the vendor of choice and the employer of choice.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's fantastic. Those are the kind of metrics that I think just about any company would be dying to have. Yeah. And, it's interesting to me because I think that the mentality is that, like you said, well, we just have to be good at customer service, and that whole concept of moving it from service to experience, then hopefully to excellence. You could see why in a competitive field, people might even be willing to pay a premium for those products because of the service they get. And once again, I'm going to bring back the Disney model. You're going to pay a lot of money, but the experience you're going to get is probably going to be worth it. That's why they keep doing what they do. So,
Did you ever read a book called Blue Ocean Strategy by any chance?
I know, I have not. Who's the author? Do you know?
It's an old book. I'm sorry, I don't even remember the author. But I love
Blue Ocean Strategy, though.
The premise was that we all compete in red ocean, bloody red ocean. We compete on price and service on product. How do you create blue ocean is the whole premise. In other words, where nobody else can compete with you. They're called barriers to entry. But the one I wanted to bring up, are you familiar with Cirque du Soleil?
Yeah.
So they use that in the book, and they say, who would have thought that you'd pay $120 to go to a circus? Because that's what it is. It's a circus without animals. That's where they came up with the idea. Where I used to pay $7 in my, in that small town where I grew up when the circus came to town. So,
right.
I think that's a great example of what you're talking about. People, customers are more willing to pay a premium when the experience is exceptional.
Yeah, that's interesting. So that was called Blue Ocean Strategy. I might take a look and see if I can find a link to it to put in the comments following the video. Yeah. It reminds me of, I have an MBA, and one of the things that I remember talking about extensively during our marketing and strategy classes was sustainable competitive advantage. And they say that the firms that can find what's called a sustainable competitive advantage have a profit premium over the rest of their industries, because the people that are trying to compete with them just cannot break into that SCA. Yes. And so they say, if you want to have a viable long-term business that's going to be profitable and do well, you got to find an SCA that you can truly stand on. Yeah. And it sounds like that's sort of what you're actually coaching the people to do, because you can't replicate that. It's not easy to replicate that kind of customer experience.
No, exactly. And again, we go back to what I call barriers to entry. How do you create barriers to entry for your competition? I'll give you another one if I can, Randall. One of the things we do with organizations, I have them identify their number one customer. Now, I tell them right up front, that's not the one who makes you the most money. It's the one who trusts you, who will, is loyal to you, is a champion for you, and maybe they don't spend as much as your top customer. Who are they? Once we identify them, what I do is what I call customer wiring. And that's simply that at every level of the organization, they get together with every level of the customer's organization. For example, worked with a wire company out of Houston. And traditionally, the manager of shipping in my customer's facility had corresponded with the manager of receiving over at their biggest customers. And I said, no, I don't want management. I want everybody in shipping to get together with everybody in receiving. So we had a breakfast, they get together, and my customer says, sorry, how can we help you? And their customer said, when you ship these things to us, we have to cut them because we cut them to certain sizes for our customers. It would help us if you did it, that kind of thing. And they go, oh, we never knew that. And then they said, my customer said to them, do you know that it takes you an average of 3 days to empty our trucks? Is there anything we could do to speed that up? And they go, yeah, of course. So it was that interaction of people who never would have interacted, but we did it at every level. Accounting got together with accounting. So once you do that, you've got a customer for life, completely customized. And now you start to work, who's your number 2 customer? Let's do that. So that's part of that 1 year journey that we take a client on. It's exactly what you're talking about, that competitive advantage.
Yeah. And it sounds like basically what you've done is you've done 2 things there that I think are very interesting with that model. You've taken their number 1 customer, not necessarily in terms of profits or what, but the one that they know is their number 1.
Yeah.
And you've changed them from being a customer to a partner.
Exactly.
That's what you've done.
Yeah.
And by doing that, like you said, it's going to be really hard for somebody to break into that competition there, because they're going to be like, no, these are our partners. We aren't leaving our partners, so that's fascinating and a great model to maybe replicate. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, wonderful. Well, any other anecdotes you want to share here? I think we're getting to where we might want to wrap this up, because I think you've given some really good stories, but any final comments that you have?
Absolutely. One of my favorite things, and I have to plug, it's in my book, Coloring Outside the Lines, but did you ever see the movie Harvey with Jimmy Stewart?
No, I haven't.
Okay. So it was an old black and white movie. I watched it as a kid. It's Jimmy Stewart's character is the only one who can see this 6-foot white rabbit. It's invisible. And
I've heard of it, but I've never seen it.
It's a Broadway show as well. It was anyway.
Yeah.
So I watched this as a kid. I took it at face value. And then fast forward maybe 10 years ago, I rented it to watch with my daughters because I was so excited. I wanted them to see it. And for some reason, I watched it from a whole different perspective. Even if you haven't seen the movie, at the beginning of the movie, they want to commit Jimmy Stewart's character to a mental institution. He's crazy. He's the only one who can see this 6-foot white rabbit. He's named Harvey. Watching from a different perspective by the end of the movie, I started to question whether or not he was the crazy one. Maybe, just maybe, it was everybody who couldn't see Harvey who was crazy. And how does that apply to our professional lives? I developed this whole thing, but the bottom line is this, and I want to leave your listeners and your viewers with this. Learn to see invisible opportunities where everyone else sees only visible limitations.
Yeah.
Say it again. Learn to see invisible opportunities where everyone else says it can't be done. Where everyone else says, we tried that 4 years ago before you got here. It doesn't work. Where everyone else says, you can't do that in this industry. That's where the opportunities lie.
Learn to see the invisible, because that's where the opportunity lies. I love that. You might want to get that as a trademark too. So I like that.
It's definitely a copyright anyway.
Yeah, there you go. Learn to see the invisible. That's where the opportunity lies. Yeah, honestly, now you got me thinking about Jeffrey Bezos and Steve Jobs and all of the other ones who saw something where nobody else saw it.
Absolutely. But the difference, and I'm a student of Steve Jobs. Not personally, I don't love what he did personally, but I got to tell you, there's a guy that started with the end in mind. He always thought of what is the experience I want my customer to have before he made anything, before he developed an idea. That's what I love about Steve.
Yeah. He wasn't thinking about the widget. He was thinking about the experience, and then he put the widget in to fit the experience, which, that's a different mentality completely. But I agree. When you hear about, he's sort of his legacy is sort of a mixed bag because of, you know, some of the things about it, but you know, you can't argue his genius, that's for sure.
That's
So
exactly right. Right.
Awesome. Well, let me go back to share screen so we can end this thing, but wonderful discussion here. And there we are. We're back into the slideshow. And now to finish this thing up, once again, that was Jeff. Jeff, do you want to give a quick plug to your website?
Absolutely. And can I make my offer as well?
Yeah, make an offer and plug your website before I do my finishing.
Absolutely. My offer is that if any of your listeners or viewers want a copy of Coloring Outside the Lines, and I'll brag, it's the only business book in the world illustrated by my then 12-year-old daughter. I'm glad to send a free PDF of the book. Now, this is not a Kindle version. It's a PDF. All you got to do is email me. My email is jeff@jefftobe.com. You see my name up there.
I'll put that in the comments.
All right. And in the subject line, put free book. And you must tell me in the text where you heard me, that you heard me on Randa's podcast.
Espresso with the experts. Yeah. There you go. Yeah.
JeffTobe.com. And my website is jefftobe.com.
Excellent. And I checked it out. It's a cool website. So we'll get that link down in the bottom too. All right. So, and as you know, I'm Randy Dean. I want to thank you all for your time today. Here, I'm going to put myself over my own face in the video. If you'd like to learn more about what I do as the email sanity expert, go check out my website, randalldean.com. If you like these videos, please hit like, please consider subscribing to the channel. Please leave comments too, because I'm really hoping that we can sort of turn these into more of an interactive experience for the people that are watching these podcasts. And if you'd like to get a whole series of little PDF tip sheets on time and email management using Outlook, Google, smartphones and tablets, reducing your distraction, all that stuff, send me an email. Like Jeff said, to send him an email, send me an email, put randy@randalldean.com. And in the subject line, put YouTube PDF, and I'll send you a whole bunch of free stuff. Keep you busy for a while. All right. Thanks, Jeff. Thanks for being part of this. I'm going to hit end on the recording now.